a joint drill, military drill with Russia. So I think that it is going to be more interesting to see what will be happening during Prabowo. And now we have got two experts in international relations, Pak Yohanes Sulaiman, a lecturer at private university, Universitas Jenderal Yani, UNJANI in Cimahi, West Java, and Ibu Curie Maharani from a private university in Jakarta, Bina Nusantara University. Pak Yohanes Sulaiman has been a seasoned expert in international relations. So basically he received his PhD in political science with specialties in international security and foreign policy from Ohio State University. He has published widely and he has a very well-known columnist. His research interests include strategic culture, diplomatic history, international security in East and Southeast Asia. Well, Ibu Curie is a lecturer and expert on conflict and security studies at Binus University. So she received her PhD in Defense Management and Leadership from Cranfield University in 2016. Pak Rifki also graduated from the same university. Rifki. Oh. Ibu Curie has also been active as a consultant with the Ministry of Defense, National Development Planning Agency, and also Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore. So we will be starting with Pak Yohanes for 20 to 30 minutes, and then will be continued with Ibu Curie, and then we will be having questions and answer sessions afterwards. So without further ado, Pak Yohanes.
I think I understand because sometimes I think yes, I just about lecture, but I've always find it easier to talk when I'm standing. So,
but basically, when I was invited to the talk here, I mean, they basically asked me like what I was when I have to work.
When I'm working on something, and I said, yeah, I'm working on a theory. And of course, I mean, they invited me and say, yeah, why don't we talk about your theory? And then, so I kind of surprised actually when today's talk, the title is about Prabowo's foreign policy. But I'll try to merge this. But okay, but basically this is my theory of hegemonic denial. Basically, like I'm trying to look at the middle powers grand strategy and how it fits with international order. But basically, this research starts from my dissatisfaction with the entire literature, basically, because while there are lots and lots of middle power on digital middle power, but the problem I think is that it's put middle power mostly as a state who react, a state who basically just follow what's going on. Reacting against great power, superpowers, action. And I'm not satisfied with it because I think they have agency. So I try to develop it through from Anna and I know this is very lost thought, so don't ask me like what book do you have written, all of them. Well, it is in museum. If you don't understand this. But there is something. But the opening of Anna Karenina is like a very famous opening. Basically, it says all families are alike. It's unhappy families. So I modify it. All middle powers are alike. Our happy middle powers are alike. It's unhappy middle power is unhappy in one way. So I guess I forgot the happy one here. All happy middle powers are alike. It's unhappy middle power is unhappy in its own way. But basically, what I want to propose here, a theory about the middle powers foreign policy. Basically, I mean, I had a huge debate with Ahmad a couple of years ago. Basically, he said that look, middle power is too poor to have a grand strategy. No, but they just don't know it. Well, if they know it, if they don't know it, does that mean they have it? It's kind of a debate, okay? I mean, whether grand strategy is something that you have to consciously know or not. Basically, I can an argument here that its middle power actually has a grand strategy, but though maybe they don't know it, but in general it follows the same pattern. That it wants to prevent outside powers from gaining excessive influence in the regions, which will threaten their interest and security. Middle powers are not stupid. They are aware that if they react too strong against great power like China or United States, they will get hammered. They will get steamrolled. So they are aware with their limit of power. So they are afraid. So they avoid that confrontation with the hegemon. Instead, they try to carve out their niche, becoming a dominant regional actor. This is to some degree is a criticism to the hedging, because everybody who understands the literature on hedging basically argues like hedging normally refers in the context of national security alignment strategy undertaken by one set or other, featuring a mix of corporate and commercial elements. Hedging occurs when small countries cooperate with two great powers, but I just don't satisfy with it. I think hedging literature basically gives no agency to middle power states, because it basically put middle power states as countries that react, that does not have its own will or interest. Yes, main interest is survival, but then what? So what? So the implicit assumption here from the hedging is that middle powers only react without having their own strategy, without having their own will. They just by these huge big bad is like United States, Russia. I mean, I don't think so. The one that they give, that I don't find satisfactory are questions like, why do states decide to hedge? Well, they want profit, of course, yeah. So what? I can get lots of benefits also by aligning myself with either United States or China. So why would I hedge? What foreign policy goals these states serve? That I think is the biggest part of the lecture of hedging, that it does not allow the agency of states. So that's why I try to look at how the middle powers, and then of course, as we are in academia, nobody agrees on anything, so because we are like querulous bunch, we hate each other. So yeah, there is no good definition of middle power. There is no precise definition of middle power. Like, how do you know a middle power when you see it? Is Indonesia a middle power? Yes. How do you know it? Is there any criteria that says that, okay, this is basically the middle power state, this is basically slightly lower, not a middle power? I think it's just very difficult to find a good measurement about what middle power is. And then, of course, usually people just go back to the definition. We still using Holbrand 1984 as usual. In the literature, the most accepted definition is state that has a significant power to influence the region, yet too weak to challenge the great powers directly. But the question: are middle powers the same as regional powers? And then, of course, when we look at Japan, is it a great power or a middle power? There are several literatures that say that, oh, Japan is middle power. Oh no, Japan is great power. And then, oh yeah, Japan is actually an abnormal power. Because we don't know whether it is a great power or super power or middle power. And same thing with North Korea. If you look at the GDP, if you look at their whatever culture influence, look at North Korea is shit state, okay? But at the same time, people associate it with middle power because it has military power, it has a nuclear bomb. So this brings a question like, how do you define middle power? Like, how do you measure it? So that's why I try to look, kind of bypass this definition, and then just look at how they look at international order. What is international order? International order is a body of rules, norms, institutions that govern relations among key players in international environment. And of course, the question is like, who are the key players? Who dominates it? Why it matters? Who makes the rules, norms, institutions? And again, who dominates it? And then I think the key question that I'm using a lot in my paper here is, who likes it? If you look at our current international order, it is basically United States-led. United States to some degree back it. United States to some degree become the international police. And of course, some states like it, some states like it. So that's how I try to basically try to get all together and then look at how the middle power itself try to foreign policy is. Okay, so let's assume that middle power is basically a state that is strong enough to matter. I know it is a bad definition, but again, I still need to rework on this. And then, of course, and then if we talk about national order, then the question is whether the middle power is happy or dissatisfied with international order, leading to the choice of status quo, limited revision, of revisionists. If the middle power states are happy with the current international order, like Australia, Canada, then they will defend it. They will not dislike it, they will defend it. The states that does not like international, like Iran, will try to change it. So we have here one variable, whether the middle power state is satisfied or dissatisfied with international order. And then the threat level, whether this international order is connected to how much fear a middle power have to the dominant power. Indonesia to United States, we kind of doing okay with United States. We kind of trust them, not a lot. And we kind of also dislike them, though not that a lot. So we to some degree kind of satisfied, kind of like in the middle. It is like the Goldilocks, okay? Like too hot, too cold, right in the middle. We are right in the middle. And then, of course, like, how do you define it? How do you know that Indonesia is afraid of United States? That's why we look at what's happened at domestic levels. In my case here, I'm using the strategic culture of states, where states are using their strategic culture to define who they see the threat, who they consider a threat. And here's my 2x6, to some degree, 2x6 table. We have here the satisfaction with international order, and we have here the perception of threat. If you are happy states, then you don't fear any threat, and you don't, you basically don't want to change things. While they will squabble in the states, while there will be like anger, people are angry in the states, whether there are complaints, but by the end of the day, if shit hits the fan, they will fight for United States. They will fight to defend international order. That's what I mean by satisfied middle powers. Limited change. States that perceive higher threat from hegemons are like isolationist regime like North Korea. They don't really want change because they cannot do it. But at the same time, they think that the hegemon, United States, is the biggest threat ever. And then the other countries are the ones that think the threat is not that high, but we also are not satisfied with international order, like Indonesia and India. But keep in mind here, when I say not that satisfied, that doesn't mean that we want to change. That means that we want to change it a bit to make it fit with our interest, but at the same time not doing anything to overthrow international order, because to some degree we are satisfied with it. And this is one. I mean, and this is if I jump to my case study is such as why Prabowo joined BRICS, why Indonesia decided to join BRICS. Not that we want to pick a fight with the United States, not that we dislike OECD or IMF, whatever, but basically we want to make some changes to our Indonesian strategy. Basically, we want to make sure that our region is not dominated by either China or United States. We want to dominate our own region here. But at the same time, we don't want to pick fight. That's why we ask for a limited change, but not a full change. And then we have revisionist states, states with perception of high threat of hegemon like Iran, and satisfaction with international order is very, very low. That's why they want to revise it, such as Iran with its Shiite crescent, and Russia. I mean, I will go back to Russia in a bit, because that is one of the major criticism that come to this model also. And then, of course, there are some states that don't like international order. They want to revise it. But at the same time, they don't think that there's much threat from the hegemon, from the United States, like Azerbaijan. They are unhappy with the relationship with Armenia, with the relationship in the Central Asia, but at the same time, so they want a change, but they don't think that they want to provoke the United States. So they will make a regional change. That, to some degree, is my model. And of course, the biggest problem now for me is trying to write everything. I need to find time to write this. I mean, this has been in my back burner for like half a year now. And God, my life sucks. Okay. But of course, I mean, I also have lots of criticism. I already sent this to some people already, and then they have good criticism on it, and I'm addressing it. First, about Russia, which I put it in brackets. Russia is not a middle power. It was a great power and now a second tier great power. Again, that brings the question. What is a second tier great power? What's the difference between upper middle power and second tier great power? I think that is just kind of the missing gap in the literature. That we throw all terms like great powers and middle powers like peanuts, like tomorrow. But the problem is we don't really understand, or we don't really know or care on how to define it, making it far more precise. Like if Russia is power, then why not Japan? Oh, but come on! I mean, Japan spent, really low on their defense compared to Russia. Yeah, but Russia spent 5% of their GDP on the budget, while Japan already achieved like half what Russia did by only spending like less than 1% of their budget. So if Japan is serious, then it can just, we can just, overspend like no tomorrow, and then just become much stronger than Russia. So how do you define second tier great power and middle power anyway? Like how do you define it? So whether size GDP matters, and I think that's also a really missing gap in the literature, that we really have to define this. And then can middle power prevent the domination of a region by a determined great power? Or power. If not, then if it can, then it's not a middle power anymore. Well, it's again, that's kind of the problem definition. Because by definition, like if the power can fight and win a battle, so it's no longer a middle power. It has become at least a great power. But again, this is kind of, going back to the problem, to what I'm trying to do here. Like I try to make an argument, make a model, how middle power strengthen their, can do whatever they want in the region without provoking the wrath, ire of a great power. So basically, and then let's bring the last criticism. Is it a coast-imposing strategy to prevent hegemon from dominating great power? It is yes. opposing strategy, which is a function of the grand strategy itself. Like in order to prevent domination from a great power, from the superpower, that we increase cost high enough they don't want to fight us. So it's kind of combination. This is going back to my criticism of hedging basically. Like most people think of hedging as this is the policy that middle powers have. But I think that you just the symptom without looking at the underlying cause. Like runny nose, you got like scratchy throat. Then what do you have? Well, you have cold. Hedging is basically saying that runny nose, but does not explain or tell you that you have cold. So this is the thing so this is basically like my open to any attack, any suggestion or criticism from you all, and I guess I will give back to the moderator.
Okay. Let us give a big round of applause to Pak Yohanes. So basically, in the first sessions, we discussed, Pak Yohanes discussed much about middle power and there is satisfactions to international order, and he has defined it in quite details. So basically, we got theoretical view from this topic, and now the second speaker is going to talk more about practical issue. And without further ado, I leave it to Ibu Curie.
Thank you, moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Curie. And I'm here on the invitation from the Faculty of Social Sciences. This is not actually the first time I'm here, but usually I sit on your parts being participants or either seminars or the summer courses. I really like the summer courses. And I guess the brown bag is very colorful in terms of topics. So today I would like to deliver something that is probably not as theoretical as Pak Yohanes, because we have different background. My background is more of quasi-academics, more of consultants. And so I will be bringing the perspective from the technocrats, from the government, instead of from the academics. I don't think I should have the decency to call myself academics, because theory is really not of my cup of tea. Because once you bring the theory to the technocrats, they will say, can it be applied? Of course, we always have a theory. We should have helicopter views of things. We should, think everything's in the long terms. But sometimes the demand of the technocratic and bureaucratic process isn't really ideal for us as academics. So different to Pak Yohanes, the aim is actually to complementing each other here. So different from Pak Yohanes, I'll be talking about Indonesia's foreign and defense policy under Pak Prabowo. Is it going to be a continuation or is it a reset? This is a very standard topics. Every time we get changes in president or minister, we'll have the same questions. And a lot have been written actually on this topic. Some said that Prabowo, with his military background, might deliver something of more assertive foreign policies. Considering the choice of the minister, he'll be a hands-on president. I would say that even before becoming a president, Pak Prabowo himself is already acting a presidential, like a president. Thinking beyond defense sectors, acting, as if he represents the country, in a presidential way. But other authors, other academics might argue that it's not going to be easy for Prabowo to deliver something of transformational or quick changes, because sometimes Prabowo act like a horse forgetting his cart. He just jump like that and forget that he has to bring something on his back, the country, the nation. Yeah. So And Prabowo has to operate within the same bureaucracy, the one that's been there for decades. And, bureaucracy is like a dinosaur. It's not easy to change. So mind you that this is some of the limitations of the changes. And perhaps in one of the classes, you've learned about the sources of foreign policy. We have different levels of sources of foreign policies at individual, at national, at international. You know, president is only one source of foreign policy at individual level. But we have bureaucracy, we have dynamics between the executive and the legislative, for example, and we have the public opinion that matters to the executive. Oh, because of course, being a new president, he has to set, you know, his mind on quick wins, but at the same time, he need to be able to secure the second term of the presidency. It's easier to make changes if you can rule the country for like 10 years instead of 5 years. Okay. So next. Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. I'll be speaking about three things here. The first is to understand great power rivalry, because that's why I want to frame uh, my talk here. What is Indonesia's response as a middle power? Prabowo's vision. Is he delivering a new version of strategic autonomy, or is it all of about buzzwords and really old wine in new bottles? And then let's look at the quick wins and medium term policies that he has, showcase us in the days, and what can we read from that. I would like to. This is actually my favorite report from RAND Corporations. As a student, I have the same question with Pa Yohanes. I always consider myself a student because every time there's something new that you have to learn, and one of it is how to determine a country's power. This is a very important topic for realists because power is like currency in everything is determined by power. And so how you measure power, how we could differentiate, Russia a middle power, or is Russia still a great power? So this is the good book that actually challenged the methodology to measure power. We have lots of attempts to define power. For example, Lois Asia Power Index is one of the main reference nowadays. We have others as well. We have the correlates of war um, that previously attempt to find a country's power. But this book actually is the clearest for me of all. Next. So Ran try to. Oh, sorry, I keep saying next. I'm the one holding the remote. Okay. So Ran try to measure what they global power index, and they identify 5 powers to measure. And of course, you have to be a bit of subjective here. You cannot measure all powers with the same weights. So they identify 5 capacity as part of powers and with the indicators, but they put different weights on it because they think, for example, economic capacity is the most important. So they give it 25 as force multiplier. Without economy, all of these powers, will cease or will decline. Military power is very important because it enabled you to do something right away. Yeah. So, and they have different sources, and mind you that they also have different measure units, which means we will be in trouble if you want to emulate this. Actually, I had attempted to emulate this, but then I realized that, when you measure nuclear weapons, it comes in number of warhead. And when you measure population, it comes in number of people. And then when you measure the military expenditures, it comes in either your local currencies or the US dollars. So you need a statistics person, and I'm sure you have a lot here. But then there are things that they don't really inform us. So when we try to emulate, we come with different results. Yeah. Nevertheless, this still very useful for us because they have tried to use this five capacity to measure what they call global power index, meaning the power that we could measure one country against the others. And they create sort of like a projections so we can see the trends whether the power will decline or not. So today's great power could be tomorrow's declining power, or etc. Today's rising power could be tomorrow's hegemon. And from all of the scenarios that they use, the baseline scenarios, the scenarios where they actually reduce the economic growth of China, and then the other, for example, they insert the scenarios where there's a global population increase, and then they also factor in climate change as well. But all these scenarios come up with the same result. China will be the number one great power in the future. It's just a matter of when. And the second would be India. And US, as we see this, will be a declining power. So I'm sure that the American government are not happy with this. But this is actually a practice that we should do in each of our countries because this will be one of the consideration when we create our foreign policy in responding to the current hegemonic competition. So, in the course of rising and declining power and the hegemonic competition in between, they will impact us. Whether middle power or small power, we will be impacted probably in different ways. Depending on our interests, on our interdependence to each or both superpowers, or we could be like a fence sitter, and yet we are still getting the impact of it. So we try to identify some of the threats stemming out of this great power competition. And we come up with different scenarios. And this is very important. We need to be able to identify the scenarios before we create our policy. We need to be able to imagine the kind of scenarios that will unfold and then the kind of response that you need to have, whether you have it or do you need to prepare it. Which one should be your priorities? So we identify the most devastating threats is in the form of regional war scenarios, which for Indonesia, it will have a spillover effect. Indonesia, you probably knows, we have a kind of like free and active foreign policy that sometimes people interpret it as a neutral policy. Neutral policy, not it's not the same with not doing anything. Neutral means we're not engaged in war. Okay. So being neutral country will still get you affected by the conflict. As you see here, this is a very old map actually. I think this came out like in 2021 when AUKUS came out in the first place. So Indonesia, as you see here, will be in the line of fire. Why in the line of fire? Because the major flashpoint will be somewhere up in the Taiwan Straits when one of the scenarios will be when China invade Taiwan or force unification and then Taiwan fight back and then the US will send their supports, whether it's from Philippines, whether it's from Japan, Australia, or Guam. And so when that scenario started, there will be um, there will be challenge over our control of sea lines of communication here from Australia to Morotai, Papua, because that was the same routes that the Allies used during the Pacific War. It is remain the shortest routes until now, and uh, the most potential to be used. We had discussion with the at America, I think a month ago, and this actually raised the questions, or how are we going to manage this, the possibility of having our territorial under the command, yeah, of others during the war times. And then there's also, you know, this is a wild idea. Nevertheless, it's still spoken out, one of it by the Japanese and the Indian, about the possibility of blockades on Malacca Straits. But aside from this, one of the most devastating impact is going to be if the Indonesian fail to evacuate the citizens in Taiwan. So if you see the numbers of the foreign citizens in Taiwan, we actually form around 38% of all foreign citizens in Taiwan currently studying or working, yeah, or marrying with the locals. And we have not finished, discussing this, the possibility, Another scenarios will be less devastating, but crippling nevertheless, is the hybrid warfare scenarios. And this is, in terms of intensity, lower than open conflict or war. But this will also challenge us the way we control our territory. We will be facing the same thing that Philippines and Vietnam face at the moment. Um, the constabulary functions, maritime militias from China, for example, in South China Sea, and then other activities that actually do similar harms, for example, damaging or tapping our submarines cable. This is a very critical issues, because if someone cut your submarine cables, you don't have internet. Well, we can always relate to satellites, of course, but um, but then again, it comes up with dependency of an actor that we might feel not sharing similar interests with us. Other more lighter but still affecting us and challenging us is unilateral action. For example, the one that U.S. did with CATSA, Countering American Adversaries to Sanction Act. It is basically aiming at Russia, North Korea, Iran, preventing them from doing arms trade, but because Indonesia and also 8 other Southeast Asian countries are customers of Russia, we cannot operate, we cannot maintain, and we cannot renew our weapon systems originated from Russia. So these are the threats that we face at different levels. You are welcome if you want to ask. So how do Indonesian respond to that? You because you had Mas Evan few weeks back, right? So Mas Evan would probably told you about Indonesian foreign policy and defense. But let me just reiterate that Indonesian defense policy is actually under recently very much focused on internal security issues rather than responding to international dynamics. And this is the major gap in our defense planning. So Indonesia's until recently has a defense posture that very much land base heavy. But since President Yudhoyono in 2004, for the past 20 years, I dare say for the past 20 years, because Pak Jokowi did nothing to change the defense policy, initiated by Pak Yudhoyono. So we have what we call strategy of defensive active and layered defense. Layered defense mean you basically layer your defense areas, and in here, the Navy and the Air Force get the first roles of defending the countries. So instead of waiting for the enemies to land on one of our major islands, we prevent the enemy, yeah, from our EEZ. So, um, as I said before, the major gap in our defense policies is short-sightedness in defense planning. And thanks to Mas Phillips, we had the chance to do research with CSIS back in 2020. We we try, we have this research called 75 years of TNI, changes in the operational, in the organizational, and the defense economy. And we sort of like map out all the defense policy that come out after 1998, and we found out that every several years this policy will change with no clear considerations, and therefore we dare say that Indonesian defense policy planning is experiencing short-sightedness. And the latest defense policy that we can actually read to understand the current policy is the strategic state defense planning that is issued every 2 years. So this is how Indonesia built this posture, and this is under the validation process, meaning that not all have been built, not all have been created. How many minutes do I have left? 10. Oh, 8. Okay. Okay, so what are the challenges for Indonesia to do balancing? Or some people say hedging, but balancing is actually the more generic terms. So when responding to international order, which currently under changes, and we see more of conflicts that affect us, not only in Indo Pacific but also other parts of the world. Some of the think tanks actually, when they assess the impact of conflict in Ukraine, they actually impact us more than the conflict in Middle East, because we have connection in supply chain, especially in food and energy. But the one in Middle East is more of like challenges our value. But nevertheless, we Indonesia is having at least two problems when it comes to balancing the dynamics of the international order. The first is we have been underinvesting, meaning that we spend too little on defense. The world spend in average 2.2% of their GDP for defense. In Indo Pacific, they spend like 1.7%, but Indonesia spend only 0.7 to 0.8. And therefore, Indonesia is lacking behind in modernization. Yeah. And similar trends actually have been observed in the way that Indonesia used their defense budget. Not only Indonesia use their defense budget, smaller when you compare to other countries. For example, like China, like here China, and here is Indonesia, very small. Yeah. But we also focus our budget on personals. We only spend less than 20%, this one Indonesia, for modernizing our arms and for R&D. Meaning we don't spend much on arms either. Okay, so this makes us unable to develop. For example, this is naval infantry. When you compare in the Pacific, we are slightly bigger than Australia, but behind India and even behind South Korea and Japan. So due to this combination, Indonesia will continue to underbalance the arms dynamic in the region. The other challenge for balancing is Indonesia is currently practicing what we call arms diversification. So this is actually a form of balancing, but in defense sectors. So we keep buying things from different suppliers because we don't want to be dependent on one country, on either Western or Eastern oriented technology. But then the problems come when we had to do this practice at the expense of interoperability. For example, we have ship that cannot talk to our aircraft. We have radar that cannot speak to our ship, things like that. And this is not only what Indonesia experienced, it's also experienced by other countries as well. So we haven't really create the right strategy for how to apply our foreign policy in defense sectors. So this is Indonesia. So compared to other countries in ASEAN, Indonesia has the most diverse defense system. So this is Indonesia. Here. Yeah. However, a good news is that Indonesia also practice what we call self-reliance in arms production, in which we prioritize our defense industry to meet the requirement of our armed forces. And this started back in 2012. Yeah. So if you see here, so Indonesia has the largest um, component of domestic produced arms. And here you can see that Indonesia do not actually increase dependence to US arms. And we increase our share of indigenous production. We increase slightly China, but this is very dynamics. Yeah. We create this in 2023. The future outlook might be different. So how is Prabowo's vision? As we know from our um, discussion with people in government. So the one that relates to defense and foreign policy is the Astachita number 2. So Pak Prabowo has visions. He called Astachita or 8 visions. And the one that relevant to defense and foreign policy is Astachita number 2. It says strengthening the country's defense and security system and encouraging national independence or self-reliance through self-sufficiency in food, energy, water, Sharia economy, digital economy, green economy, and blue economy. This is a new thing for us. This at first it's create confusion. How come you say defense and security in the same way with Sharia economy, digital economy, etc., etc. It's very colorful. Yeah. One way to interpret this is that there might be securitization of non-military type of security, but will this mean more role for the military? If yes, how? And how we are going to conduct it in the corridor of democratic country? And then the programs, Prabowo has 17 strategic programs. The one that relates to foreign and defense policy is number 9, defense strengthening and state security and maintenance of conducive international relations. And then he has 18 work program. And this one are the one that relates to defense and foreign policy. So he wants to increase defense spending, expedite military modernization. He wants to solidify the creation of national reserve, early warning system, IT and cybersecurity, smart diplomacy, protections of citizens abroad, maritime diplomacy, support to Palestine freedom, active in the world peace, and then commitment to local product. And this is how we see the foreign policy and the defense policy in action. Even before Prabowo being acknowledged by the court constitution as a elect president, he already faced the challenge of being courted by China. You probably have read newspaper about how the Chinese government extend invitation, and China became the first country that he visited as an elect president. And this create havoc actually in the domestic politics, because this, for some, this was seen as kind of like intervention that China seldom or never did to other countries. Others say that China would want to lose momentum and they want to be, use their charm offensive to woo, to make sure that Pak Prabowo will have the same continuity, same with Pak Jokowi's. Okay. But then, hello, okay. But then Pak Prabowo also visited Japan and then Malaysia. So he had to visit Japan because he wants things to be balanced. But um, but for me, the one that he wants to visit first is actually Malaysia, because he has a good relationship with Anwar Ibrahim. We had discussion with the Islamic Student Association (HMI) in Jakarta, and many of our seniors actually share their own personal accounts on the closeness between Jaime and Pa Anwar, and then Pa Prabowo actually have good relationship in personal. And then we had this that Pa Prabowo sent his foreign minister to BRICS forum and said that he wants to join as a partner, not yet a full member, but a partner. At the same time, Indonesia is making a session to the OECD. But mind you that these two things are different actually. OECD is not seen by us as leaning towards the West. It is something that we need because we want to do a reform, a governance reform, a bureaucratic reform. And we had the belief that we need this membership in OECD so that we can achieve our full potential in 2045. But BRICS member is something different. BRICS is seen as leading toward the left, but we're actually not. But is this complementary or conflicted interests? You might see that other countries have joining BRICS as well. Thailand, as you know, although they are alliance to the United States, Vietnam, although they're having difficult times with China, India, in the same group with Indonesia, as Pak Yohanes said, India wants to have a changes in the international order, but they don't want to change the institution actually. But they don't have, but they don't want new institution. They rather reform the old institution. So I think we shouldn't judge too early about the direction of Pak Prabowo's foreign policy with these steps. We should consider this as a small wins, quick wins, a show, but the real stuff is still in the brewing. Nevertheless, Pak Prabowo's joining the BRICS, I think it's catches attention and support from some elements of the community. And then this is our other quick wins. There are emphasis on self-reliance or strategic autonomy. This, the Ministry of Pertanian itu apa ya? Agriculture, yeah. So the Ministry of Agriculture said that they will engage with TNI to deliver the food estates program, despite criticism from CSOs. And then the other quick wins would be the decision to use local produce car from PT Pindad which is basically a defense industry, to be used as the car for the ministers. And then, in order to alleviate some of the concern, there are news about TNI going to the National Human Rights Commission, wanting to sign MOU so that the commission could deliver some courses for the military personnel. And then other quick wins that we see here, that the government's just made order for the maintenance of 41 warships for Indonesia. How should we read this? Still, I see this as a quick wins. It's very catchy, it's very catchy, but will it sustain? And the involvement of TNI personnel, should it be read as that the TNI will be less professional, that TNI will get more of the public role, or is it because Pak Prabowo wants to expedite things? We use military to deal with everything, because they are the quickest to mobilize. But of course, the question will be, will it sustain both the role of the TNI in the non-military sectors, and what are the impacts later on, and what the expense to the TNI professionalism. So, when we deal with the question whether the foreign policy and defense policy of Pak Prabowo will be a continuity or will be a reset, we can only say that, of course, Pak Prabowo will continue some of his predecessors' program, because why do we need to change the good things if we don't need to? But of course, he has to make his own signatures on things, but he would want to make the signature in a way that it would not destroy all the progress that has been made. And perhaps for us as an academics, it is our duty to strengthen the oversights. Although Pak Prabowo might have a good intention, but really the devil lies in the details. How his minister, how his people, his team interpreting his visions, and to create a work plan with clear objective, it is still something that he needs to prove. So I'm not answering the question that I pose. Rather, I ask you to engage in a further research that might help to bring the clarity more to these topics. I will stop here. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Curie. I think that we have talks that nicely complement each other. Pak Yohanes discussed more about micro topic and more theoretical, while Ibu Curie, on the other side, complemented with more focus on Indonesia defense and foreign policy, and also more practical topic. And I think that it is aligned well with the demography of our audience here. I think that you students come from a variety of countries across the world, and then probably you do not only you are not only interested with Indonesia topic, but probably you can ask what will be happening in the regions where you live to Pak Yohanes Sulaiman as well. And I will open the first round for 3 people who are going to ask questions. Please raise your hand. Okay, I think we've got you and the gentleman behind, and on this side, Pak Siro. Oh, okay. Or student first, ya, Pak Siro. Okay, please state your name and then your affiliations.
Okay, thank you everyone. My name is Toris, and I'm from Triple IU, a master student, focus in Okay, say thank you for presenters. It is a very insightful presentation. So basically, I heard a lot the word hedging, also diversify. So I began to think that the Indonesia foreign policy of non-alignment, basically, it's not uh, even today. It seems more like Indonesia embrace more multi-alignment, like Indonesia cooperate with everyone that can give a benefits for the Indonesian national interest. That I think is a first thing that when we talk about the hedging and also the diversification. But my question is more into the middle power. Like I heard, if I'm not mistaken, like the terms of the middle power, I think it begins to emerge during the SBY administration, and when Indonesia using this kind of narrative, Indonesia began to want to play a greater role in the what we call rule-based international order. Like if we can mention some articles. There are four major roles that Indonesia want to take part as a middle power, like as a regional leader, and then as a voice of for developing countries and the promoter of democracy and the human right, and then as a bridge builder. I think these four roles that uh, we can sum up from the SBY administration using this middle power narrative. But my question is, uh, from the first this term emerged until this day, how this government could maintain and make it this role consistent as a part of integral part of the Indonesia foreign policy. Because if we see some articles say that the domestic pressure that Indonesia has, it's sort of different if we compare with another emerging middle power. If I can categorize like emerging middle power like Indonesia, Brazil, South Africa, and then the traditional one like maybe Pak Yohanes said, Japan, or maybe South Korea, Canada, uh, have more stable, consistent in playing their each roles. But how about Indonesia? How can Indonesia make it consistent?
Okay, thank you. And we've got this gentleman over there. And
Uh, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed from MPP in Climate Change. My question will concentrate on Africa, a continent where virtually most people have not even heard of Indonesia, uh, leading to, I think, that nickname of the sleeping giant. So, even though Indonesia has recently deepened ties with African nations through the Indonesian African Forum in 2018 and the Parliamentary Cooperation 2024 under the administration of President Joko Widodo. So, my question is, how may Prabowo's, Subianto's, and Gibran Rakobumin's administration, and also under the leadership of the Foreign Minister Sugiano, balance Indonesia's defense and security threat, particularly bordering on counterterrorism, maritime security, and also defense industry collaboration with the evolving political and economic dynamics of regional African blocs, especially ECOWAS and the Southern Africa Development Corporation, where both the first and the second largest Indonesia's largest trading partners, Nigeria and South Africa, are located. And then my second question is, how can Indonesia utilize its people-to-people diplomacy and soft power, such as the educational and cultural exchanges, which I am proud to be part of and also benefiting from through IIIU, in order to strengthen its influence in Africa, just like its compatriots like China, India, and also recently
Sorry, can you repeat your first questions just succinctly, concisely? Oh. Okay. Yeah. Mm. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And now we have got the gentleman right here and Pak Siro. Yeah.
Okay, my name is Sahil Lamadani. I'm a student of political science in this at this university. I have several questions to ask regarding BRICS. As we know, that Indonesia has been in cordial relationship with China, and the trade relation, economic relation has been good. As we know, that China is top contributor of FDI of Indonesia right now, meaning that we can actually achieve those things even without membering ourselves into BRICS member. So we can actually stay as partner state, doesn't have to be a member state of BRICS. And yeah, I mean, what is the urgency of membering ourselves as a member state of BRICS? What does Indonesia want, economically speaking? And as far as global politics concern, this can lead to, I think, bad relation to the West, because West will actually see us as pro-Chinese or pro-Russia. And I'm also wondering how the West will react to these situations. And as far as I remember, the last time we did this, it was in Sukarno's era, that we very close to China and Soviet. And yeah, we know what happened afterwards. Yeah, they could be my questions. Yeah, I think that's one question that I can ask. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Pak Siro.
And the term is applied to a variety of things, ranging from food, maybe food, energy, water, and maybe to other things, including maybe technology. So maybe in the short terms, it can give quick wins, maybe, or maybe even in the long terms. But for the last several decades, actually, self-sufficiency has been somehow in the blood of Indonesian people and policy. Since Pak SBY, Pak Jokowi, we always hear self-sufficiency. But I think the question is whether the government often see the issue in the outcome, that we lack of food production, we lack of let's say we are dependent on energy on other countries. But the government and us, the people, we don't see in the process. Maybe the problem not in the outcome, but in the process. Despite the fact that we say the goal is self-sufficiency, but if you don't change in the process, maybe that will never happen. In the food, for example, in order to achieve self-sufficiency, the government create a food estate, but never seen the problem in terms of how food production is run right now, in terms of let's say technology, in terms of the social organization, in terms of maybe other factors in the process. In terms of technology, if we say, for example, by creating a national car, maybe we think, maybe overthink, that when the president used the Pindad product, now we expect we will have a national car, for example. So the question is, since the last 2 decades, maybe in the last decade, we have what we call as local component, right? At least 60% that the car should be locally manufactured. But the problem is, some people say, despite the fact, or even because of the fact, actually, in terms of technological accumulation, we lack. We never achieve technological upgrading, given the fact in terms of the 60% local requirement. There are some reasons, but the point is, we never see the detail in the process. You all see in the outcomes. So, actually, my question, is it true that actually self-sufficiency will bring us to improvement, or actually will it actually bring us back? Rather than improving our technological capacity, maybe somehow it will create more time for us to catch up other countries. For Pak Yohanes Sulaiman, when initially I thought that for your model, which is very insightful, my question is, I thought that the variable will classify all the countries, regardless of the power status, whether they are small country, whether they're middle power, or they great power. So if the model and the variable classify all the countries, I imagine that the model will give me some perspective how to understand a particular country. I can say, oh, this country, according to this model, this country is middle power, this country is small power, this country is contending power, for example. That's the benefit of such model in my in my view. But maybe you didn't give us the whole model. That what I see is the model include only the middle power. I don't know whether actually you have in your back the model actually classifies all the country. So if it classifies all the countries, again, the benefit if people will see one of the benefit is, okay, I can see this country can be seen as middle power, and middle power might behave in very specific manner. But if the model include only the middle power, maybe the question for your readers will be, so what is actually the goal of the model? Why should we bother with this model if it include only the middle power? Whether the aim is to categorize the middle power, that middle power somehow are not homogeneous, and if they are heterogeneous, maybe it will give us some prediction. If the middle power is categorized as type A, for example, we might expect that the behavior will be something like this. If the middle power is categorized as type B, the behavior will be different. So that's I think the way people expect from the model, then the model will give them some insight how to see the reality better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I saw some people already raise their hands, but hold on, hold your questions. We will still have a second round. But now I will give opportunity to Pak Yohanes first to ask 4 questions for gentlemen.
Well, there are lots of questions here. I mean, I'm not sure where to start. But basically, I mean, when you're asking whether the non-alignment is no longer relevant, the first question we have to ask is how you define non-alignment. Because if we look at Indonesian history, even when we declare ourselves as non-alignment, we are still members of many organizations back in the 60s, 70s. And of course, I mean, non-alignments only matter when there are two powers to choose. But even back then, I mean, non-alignment is kind of faddish. I mean, by the 80s, nobody really cares anymore about non-alignment, I think. So, I mean, so, so I mean, I'm not sure what, but basically, I think non-alignment itself. I mean, even in the 80s, when they say that, oh, we are non-aligned, but we are very close to United States back then. So, I mean, so honestly, I mean, this is kind of the concept where I really hate because it's really like specificity. You have to really define it. I mean, it is nice to use it as jargon, but that's it. It's a jargon. Yeah, I mean, so and then second, I mean, is middle power only popular? I mean, during Yudhoyono era. I mean, yeah, but the literature on middle power, I mean, started I think actually back in 17th century. That's the first talk about middle power. It was, but back then it was about a city, I mean, city states. And then in the 80s, we have lots of literature on middle power. So it is not something new. But of course, in Indonesian discourse, it is new, but not in IR discourse, basically. And then third, how the government could make any any role consistent. I mean, you're talking about like taking the role of like defense of democracies, but of democracy, and then how? I mean, honestly, I'm not sure. I don't think that it is domestic issue that makes us abandon this idea of Indonesia as a leader in democracy. Rather, it is just Jokowi don't give a damn, basically. And that's the problem with Indonesia. I think most of the initiative here are kind of more of top down. I mean, if you chase the top, then there goes all the initiatives. So, and I think this is cause less of public opinion than the fact that Yudhoyono did not put too much structure in it. I mean, you need to have structure, bureaucracy, and institutions that will keep reproducing, keep doing things. I mean, if you look at Shangri-La dialogue, I mean, it has been like for what, like 20 years already now. I mean, it's pretty long, right? I mean, you have institution there, ISS, who's doing it, and then you have Minister of Defense of Singapore, who's willing to spend lots of money on it. We used to have Jakarta Defense Forum actually, and then it collapsed. Why? Because the Minister of Defense does not want an organization to do. I mean, to run it. They want. I mean, it is like discussion during our talk today about the Minister of Harm and things. Yeah, same thing. I mean, it is popular, and then Minister of Defense suddenly say, "Oh yeah, yeah, we want to take it over." But at the same time, they don't have enough resources. They don't have enough knowledge. They don't really understand how to do this correctly. As like CSIS, I think it was CSIS, right? The one who did it, right? If I'm not mistaken, it was the CSIS who made it. I mean, I guess it is more of like bureaucracy here. I think that's the biggest problem rather than us not having any idea. I mean. And then, yes, I guess that's all. I mean, from my view. And then second, about Africa. Honestly, I'm not really an expert of. So I'm not sure if, I mean, this will be like the answer that you want, but regarding soft power, Indonesia soft power, I think they just like very few people here thinking that much about Africa. Unfortunately, I mean, most people here are more concerned about K-pop and J-pop, I guess, other other than Africa. And then, so I mean, in terms of soft power, you really have to have commitment, and then you really have to spend lots of capital, lots of political capital. To the country. And then the problem is, I'm not sure Indonesia really in the position actually to kind of to spend our capital there. I mean, I might be wrong. Okay, Curie may say, "Oh, Johannes, you are an idiot. You don't know anything." But I mean, so feel free. I mean, because Africa is honestly not something that I can say anything in confidence. So, and then third, what's the urgency of BRICS? Actually, if you, when I wrote about this, actually, it was published yesterday. And basically, my argument is it is more of Prabowo wants to show himself as a leader of global South. It is like one I quote from John Naisbitt. I don't know what. I think you are all too young for John Naisbitt. I mean, it was popular back in the 1980s, 90s. I mean, it is stupid book, but I love quoting lots of nonsense from it. And basically, leadership is trying to find a parade and get in front of it. That's one of his crazy quotes. Leadership is trying to find a parade and get in front of it. And that's, I think, what we are doing actually with BRICS. Because BRICS is popular among third world countries, then yeah, I mean, that's a good parade and we want to get in it as a leader. But honestly, I also agree with you. There's not really much economic benefit with it. And it costs a lot of headache because it ruined our relation with Washington. And I think Prabowo is not stupid, okay? Prabowo is a very smart guy. I mean, he knows it. And that's why I think one of the main reasons why he sent Sugiono instead of himself there. I mean, my friend in Malaysia is saying that no, Yohanes, you got it wrong. I said, look, I mean, if in our and if Anwar went there, yeah, I can see that maybe they don't care about him. Okay, who cares about Malaysia? Yeah. Okay, anybody from Malaysia don't call me anything. Okay, yeah, but but Indonesia, I think they will roll a red carpet on it. They will try to say, oh, Indonesia, the biggest country in South Asia, now become member of BRICS. I think they will give him lots of respect. But I think Prabowo is smart enough to know that it's kind of like poking the hive, poking the hornet nest. So that's why he sent Sugiono basically. So that they supposed to tell the United States that look, yeah, maybe we want to be a part of BRICS, but we are not that stupid. We still want to do deals with you. I mean, you see, Prabowo didn't even go there. I mean, I think that's the calculation. And finally, honestly, about my model, I've been thinking also to integrate with, I mean, with the small powers and then great power. But at the same time, the problem with that kind of thing is that if by adding too many countries there, I mean, basically it does nothing. Because small powers face different international structure, different international challenges compared to middle power. They basically maybe hates the great power, but they have even lesser power to do so. I mean, like Bhutan, like Nepal, they end up just following it because the pressure was too much for them. So I mean, so middle powers, my definition is like at least you can still do something about it. That's why my focus is on middle power because I mean now you got into my case like say your model doesn't try anything. But when I send it to a journal, they will say, oh you try to explain anything, you explain nothing. So yeah, we reject it. So it is kind of question itu. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Puguri?
Okay, good question. How to, for the first question, how to have a consistent role? Role change with the change in power. When you ask the Japanese at the moment, they are experiencing what the US had, declining power. And for Japan, it's much more devastating because, well, the US perhaps has, the opportunity to turn back the trend, but for Japan, it's done. So, my last conversation with them is that they're now having like a national soul searching in which they will have these 3 years practices to find the perfect role for them as a declining power. So, how is Indonesia now fair in terms of power? If you see the Lowy Asia power, Indonesia is actually much better in several category of powers. And I think in the future, Pak Prabowo may have better options, better chance than Pak Jokowi. At least within the ASEAN, with Singapore having new prime minister, Malaysia having problem with the economy, Pak Prabowo might be the only figure in the South Asia at the moment, yeah, that anyone could expect to become a true leader. So there'll be a bigger opportunity for him. The second is about Indonesian African Forum. I'm so sorry to say this, but Indonesia has so many blindness. We have maritime blindness, we have Indian blindness, we also have African blindness. And now this blindness starts to fade away, because now we have a more clarity in terms of what we want from Africa. We have hard times with our traditional partners, traditional markets, and with this great power competition, we want to diversify our trade with other countries as well, including Africa. And I think UAE is actually a perfect place for engaging with people-to-people diplomacy because here you are. And with regards to the thing that you asked, counterterrorism, maritime security, defense industrial cooperation, I think I checked, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Prabowo never visit Africa as defense minister. meaning that defense cooperation is still far away. I'm not really sure with counterterrorism, but recently with what happened, the devastating conflict that happened in Sudan might propel India to Indonesian, awareness. Hopefully, it's a sad fact, but um, I think in the future we probably will be see India in its right terms. The third would be Indonesia joining BRICS for what catch? I think Pa Yohanes actually answered that elegantly in his recent articles. Um, I would like to add that I don't see joining its BRICS as Indonesia trying to make a difference, that it should be seen as a shift in foreign policy. I think it's for domestic purpose. Like, Indonesia has been seen as leaning toward West because we want to join OECD. So we kind of like want to balance out. But with the current conflict that happens in Middle East, BRICS is actually one of the forum where countries of global South, whatever the definition is, uh, can use that forum to to talk more about Palestine. Even currently, South Africa also talk about submitting more proof to ICJs in the forums as well. So, um, to what extent BRICS can be used for that consolidations of global South remains to be seen. Um, how the West reacted? From my conversation with our American friends, they're pretty much confident with Indonesia not to go far towards China. But I can tell that Japan is concerned about us. So I think the questions merits the thoughts that we have to communicate our changing policy gesture to our traditional partners. Japan has been one of the strongest partners for Indonesia and one of the most trusted partners for Southeast Asia. So I think alleviating the concerns is should be a priority. The last question, self-sufficiency. I agree with you, sir. This is a never-ending questions about self-sufficiency. I remember 5 years ago, during Jokowi's, was it 5 years ago? I think more than that. Probably 10 years ago, under Pa Jokowi, we had this eternal debate on whether we will have sovereignty or um, sovereignty of or security in foods, because the two renders very completely different definitions and impact. But um, I can tell you that you know being self-sufficiency is seen as one way of Indonesia to preserve its strategic autonomy, and I think this is not just an issue for Indonesia, but also for the European Union, for example, with the energy trade with Russia coming under threats, with the conflict in Ukraine, and then they analyze their dependency to U.S. and with the incoming new presidency, whether it's going to be Harris or Trump. Uh, but the concern reverberates to American allies and even Australia, the one that we used to say the deputy of the U.S. in the region. They're starting to get a grip on themselves. They're increasing their military expenditure. They build up relationship with countries like Indonesia. We've never been in better cooperation with Australia. Yeah, they spread their influence in the region. So self-sufficiency is a matter of preserving strategic autonomy, but of course it's not gonna be easy. And I think one of the reason why Prabowo choose to start one of the earliest program with the military is because it is easier for him to use the military, because everything that use military must come under national security. And national security is something that other countries cannot challenge you. If he choose like Suharto in the past, choose one of the commercial car to be used as the government's car without proper competitions, which is warranted by the World Trade Organization, he'll be in big trouble. But because this is a defense industries and is considered under national security issues, he might be able to navigate himself out of that trouble in the future. So there's a reason behind that. Although I cannot say that we should justify it, but there's a reason behind that decision, and we'll see in the future. But I hope that Apple will be able to sell their iPhone soon. And of course, before that, they have to meet the local content requirement.
Thank you, Vikuri. Due to the interest of time, we still have 10 minutes, and I think that we have got already two people raised, three. I think we can still accommodate three people. You, and the other one is, yeah, I think, okay. Please state your name and please keep your question short.
Myself, Mohsin Ali, I am from Pakistan. I'm a political science student here. I have a very simple question. What is the soft power and how can we relate with the middle power? Can we say that those who have a soft power are the middle power? And if we look at the modern contemporary world, can we say that those who have a power of data means technology, can be a middle or a superpower? How can we relate the power? Because if I have downloaded my Facebook or WhatsApp, the Facebook is recording my all data. So many people have using the modern technologies. So many countries have the data to how it manipulate to other countries or something like this.
Okay, my name is Doto. I'm from political science in a way. Actually, I have two questions from different speakers. Starting with the first speaker, my question is, I'm sorry, I write it here. My question is based on the first speaker presentation. I would like to ask you on the point of middle power, upper power, and the greatest power, and the great power. Do you think this kind of power related to the contemporary chaos, or what's happening around the global, as what we know? And also, if yes, what do you blame? Who we should blame about it, and why? Beside that question is, what is the position of United Nations against this threat? And since it is declared, since UN is declared as the peacekeeper agencies, that's the first question. You got it? Can I repeat?
They got it.
Okay. My second question. Yeah, of course, I still have one. Okay, my second question is based on the second speaker, which is you have explained about the presume of the great power, and you talk about the threat of the China against Taiwan, and also you insist about Indonesian territory police defense, and I mean Indonesia police defense about evacuation of Indonesian citizenship in Taiwan. So my question is, do you think if Indonesia's defensive force will evacuate Indonesian citizens to Taiwan, do you think it may make Indonesia safe from the threat, or if yes, why?
Okay, thank you. My name is Yusha. I'm a political science student. Actually, considering the current geopolitics around the region, the second speaker proposed the idea of physical warfare is quite imminent. However, apart from arming our armed forces to meet the requirements of minimum essential forces, the government also proposing to establish the fourth branch of armed forces, the cyber force. Moreover, looking at our latest defense paper, I believe the idea of threats emphasize more in response to terrorism, insurgency, and non-state actors. I also read in article written in Foreign Affairs that the current warfare, looking at the Russia-Ukraine and Israel-Hamas war, is really heavily rely on drones and high-tech weapons. As a middle power, what both of you think our current defense strategy is going in the right direction? Is it going in the right direction considering the threats that Indonesia will face in the near future? Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
That's true. Okay, let me get your question straight, okay? So your question is whether it is possible to have a superpower based on soft power, right? Do I get it right? Well, it is kind of like chicken or egg question, I guess, because on one hand, I think middle power is a country that has enough power to actually spread soft power. I mean, not that. I mean, well, look. I mean, even I know it's like small. Can make an argument like small power, like Nauru of Vanuatu have their own soft power, like such as like for their position as like a threatening countries. They kind of pushing for the global green agenda, like climate change agenda. But at the same time, I think it's limited. And so to some degree, I think it is the middle power that have kind of the more ability to influence others compared to the small power. So I think your question is kind of like a tautological here. Soft power can support middle power, and so middle power itself can support soft power. Just think about it, okay? Will you listen to K-pop if it is made in Vanuatu? I think, well, not that I want to say that Vanuatu doesn't have any culture, of course, but we barely know what's in there. Okay, aside of I guess seas, fish and whatever. So I think that's kind of self-reinforcing thing. I don't know if that's kind of answering your question, but and and is that enough? Is that okay? And then your question, I'm not really sure. Like, what do you? So your question is like what the position of United Nations to the soft power? To the middle power or something like that.
My question is, do you think this kind of power, what you explain about the middle power, explain about the upper power and the big power, right? So my question was, do you think this kind of power needed to be contemporary chaos?
Contemporary chaos. I think the contemporary chaos is less caused by the growing of middle power than kind of transition. I think like United States is weakening and China is strengthening. I disagree when you say that China is going to surpass United States anytime soon. I don't think so. But at the same time, it is going getting close, and then you can see it because it creates disorder basically. But and usually back in the days, if there are the kind of disorder, then they try to fix it through war. If you as much as we hate war, but it cannot be denied. Like the rebel from French Revolution was over because we got the Napoleonic War. And then the rise of Germany creates lots of chaos in Europe, and then it's ended when we got the First World War and the Second World War. And then of course, but now there is no reset. But now, if you want to go to war, then you got nukes. And and by the and then if I use nukes and you use nuke, and by the end of the day, nobody wins. So I think China and Russia and the United States and even Russia are smart enough to know that if they went to war, there will be nukes. Putin keeps saying, "Oh, I'm going to nuke Ukraine. I'm going to nuke Europe," but I think he's bullshit. I don't believe that he's willing to risk Moscow I mean, because if he's using nukes, then he become pariah not only by the West but everybody. Everybody think like, look, you are a madman. What kind of person in the right man using nukes? And that's what creates this chaos because United States is weakening, but nobody can challenge it because of fear of the nukes, and same in China. So nukes, I think, rather than this great equalizer, it creates the global disorder because it's kind of maintaining the status quo, basically. So what's the solution? I don't know. But I think that's the problem. I think. Because back then, if you got Iran or whatever causing much problem, then we just send expeditionary army and destroy them. Basically, that's the old imperialism. But you cannot do it now because of the threat. Is that I mean, position of UN, it really depends on from what political, from what theoretical perspective you are coming from. I mean, for realist, United States is not really that important, except I mean, it is the tool of state power, basically. I'm not going to say that. I mean, even as a realist, I mean, I'm a realist. Don't say that United States is not all that useless. I mean, Morgenthau spent like half of his book on United Nations. I mean, so we do realize that United States is important, but but I don't think it really has anything to do with the question of middle power. That's my opinion. Mm, Okay. Okay, and then I think you have the first.
Okay, thank you. I think I will address the questions about um well, let me just respond by Johannes first because he said he's disagree with me, and I want to clarify one thing that I cited ran study and I think we've seen that the United States take seriously the possibility of China overtaking their power, and hence they come up with strengthening their alliances in the regions, and then of course they have taken some of it unilateral measures such as the Chips Act, preventing China from getting its hand on the semiconductor making machineries. Those things, what we see as a merely act of uh, against China is actually very strategic because if United States can prevent China from converging in powers, then it will drive away the possibility of wars. War can only happen when both sides or more than both sides engage in adversarial relations, have faith that they can win the war. Hence, they started it. But if they don't have the faith, they won't start a war. Even the gorilla won't start a war against each other if they count that the others have more gorillas in their pack. So I think we'll see. For now, US has been trying to prevent that convergence of powers taking place. The I'm so sorry, I didn't really catch your other questions, but please don't be discouraged. I had my moments actually. I was once working in Singapore and I couldn't understand what the aunties in the canteen asked me, Like I couldn't even order my food because I cannot, tell the accents of the local people and and um and please correct me if I'm wrong. You asked about Indonesia facing threats from China and if we can do the evacuations. Yes. Problem is we have almost 300,000 people in Taiwan at the moment. And I think the largest records we've ever, the largest evacuation we've ever recorded was when we had to evacuate the migrant worker from Malaysia at the time. And it was less than 10,000, if I'm not mistaken. And we could use warship for doing that. But for this scale of evacuation, we cannot do it by ourselves. We cannot just depend on our military. Usually, we also depend on commercial flights. But you know what? how many sorties we have to do for evacuating. So in the future, we have to do some kind of diplomacy. We have to be able to, bring these citizens to a secure place. We might have to even, persuade China, because we also have citizens in China that will be affected when if war happen. And the evacuation routes, this is something that my friend Ratih Walgiswari is currently studying in Taiwan. She actually sees the preparations, of countries that will be affected if uh, there's a war in Taiwan Straits. um the new technology, of course we are aware of new technologies, but we also cautiously approach this. If you follow the Ukraine war, the role of drones really depends on the type of and the extent of the use of the drones in shaping the conduct of wars, also different from time to time. And for Indonesia, sometimes if we see, good toys, we want to have it, but really it's not about that. It requires changes in our doctrine. It requires changes in our policy. It requires changes in our personnel. Once we adopt the technology, we have to prepare the equipment, the facilities, the logistic, the training, the people, etc., etc. There are so many things, yeah, accompanying acquisitions of defense technology. So I would say that the new emerging technologies such as UAV would replace conventional weapons. They do have their own they have their own utilization. I have a Malaysian friends who is currently working on a study, how he actually like compared three different weapon systems that can be used to safeguard Malaysia and EEZ. UAV being one of the alternatives, but it comes with benefits and downsides. Like you cannot have maritime presence if you only use UAV. You have to be presence. You need to have ships. There operational on uh, almost run of the year. The Chinese, they have maritime presence more than 300 days in a year, and we have a lot to catch up. And surely UAV cannot be used for substituting that. I think that's all.
Okay, thank you. Let us give a round of applause to both speakers. Yeah, thank you very much, Pak Yohanes and Bu Curie, for speaking to us. And then it is unfortunate that we have got limited time, so there are several other questions cannot be accommodated. But stay tuned. We will be still holding this kind of event in the future. Stay tuned. And thank you again for your interest and questions. Yeah. Okay. 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 Ladies and gentlemen, can we take picture together? Request from organizer.
Halo, Mas. Kamu dari mana? Dia tapi keren anak. Ini yang ke depan semua. Depannya. Oh, keren ya. Unhang gitu dah. One, two, three. One more, one, two, three. Beda teknologi yang banyak ya, keren-keren saya di itu akan nanti banyak friends kita political science dengan research itu yang sama ngomongnya aura aja. Next major.